Rules aren't meant to be broken. They're meant to be rewritten altogether. If you're ready to play by your own rules, if you are a rebel with a cause, I think you'll love it here. Bring a friend, sit back, and enjoy another episode. Or don't. Remember, you write the rules here. Hello, my love. You are now tuned in to another episode of Rima's Rules. We are going to have a private conversation with all my hyper-independent baddies, my women who want a man but don't need a man. Gather round, let's talk. This video might piss you off, you might be mad at me, but that's okay, because sometimes that anger makes the message a little bit more memorable. I will start by letting you know that I am not an independent woman. I've hung my jersey up. I have no desire to be an independent woman. I've done it before. I did it very well. And if I'm put in that position again, I'll do it even better. But at this point in my life, I have chosen someone to be with and therefore find it very pointless for me to claim that I'm independent while I have decided to be in a relationship with somebody else. And the type of independence I'm speaking about for the remainder of this video is not so much financial independence, that can be a whole nother conversation for another day, but it's more so the emotional independence that I often think is actually a lot more scary for us to give up. It is a lot more scary for us to give up this emotional independence that we have built through years and years of, depending on ourselves or being single. So while this word might have so many different meanings to so many different people, let's just all get on the same page. This letter is to my hyper independent baddies who have a problem depending on someone else, who have a problem needing somebody else. When I was dating, I was very proudly independent. I loved being on my own. I always knew that I would end up in a loving, healthy relationship with a man who respected, loved, and honored me. I just knew that that was going to happen for me. So that certainty really enabled me to double down on not just enjoying my single era, but cherishing it. It got to a point where my preferred mode was being alone and in my own space. I enjoyed it so much. And I want to make one thing clear before we go on. I stand by that. I stand by the energy of really being love, being the love within yourself so that you don't feel like you're desperate for that from somebody else. I think enjoying my life, enjoying my space, loving and respecting myself and my time was what ultimately attracted to me someone who would also do the same, that I would be able to share that with. And the other great thing about that is in being independent and being able to really love your solitude. When I did attract Ahmad to me, so much so that even though I knew that I didn't want to have to feel like I was independent in a relationship, it required a lot of conscious effort for me to actually stop being so dependent on myself. It wasn't difficult for me to find someone. It was very difficult for me once I found that person, for me to actually allow myself to depend on him. By the time you watch this video, Ahmad and I will have just celebrated 3 years of being married. So I'm going to give you 3 rules for each one of those years that I wish someone told me about healthy romantic relationships. First things first, rule number 1, you do need him, and that is okay. You need to embrace needing him. It is okay to need somebody. I'll kick this one off with another one of my stories. I was 23 and working in an office there was a lot of age diversity in this office. And we were kind of in our conference room eating lunch together, having a conversation about relationships. And I said something to the effect of I don't want someone to complete me. I don't want my person to complete me. I want to be whole and then find someone else who's whole and be with them. I don't need anybody to complete me. And I vividly remember this coworker that I had who I want to say was in her 50s or maybe even 60s at the time, and had a partner, a husband who she'd been married to for, at this point, over 30 years. Her kids were my age. And the way she looked at me, she gave me this kind of confused, low-key judgy look of girl, what are you talking about? She didn't say anything, but I just felt this vibe off of her. And the vibe kind of felt like I had a lot to learn. And now, of course, I'm just assuming what she was thinking. But it was interesting because it kept making me reevaluate the things I was saying to see if I sounded naive in her eyes. What I will say is that the words I was saying, I still agree with. I still agree with the idea that as a human being, let alone a woman, I do want to feel complete. I do want to feel like I don't depend on anyone else for my happiness or even my survival at this point in my life. And yes, I do want to feel whole and like I find someone else who's also whole and it also depends on himself for his happiness. And then when we come together, I want it to be true that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. That together we're so much better than 1 + 1 = 2. That's the vibe that I wanted in a relationship. And I totally agree with the actual words I was saying. But there was just this energy behind it. And I know you know what I'm talking about because most of us hyper independent baddies feel the need. We're kind of like vegans. We feel the need to remind everybody at every corner how independent we are. And no shade to vegans. I'm not speaking on you right now. But like when you constantly feel the need to remind someone that you're independent, there's just something there. Like I know for me, at that point in time, I was in very toxic relationships. I think that I felt needy of certain things that I didn't feel I was getting in those relationships. And so I felt the need to constantly exert my independence. Like, I don't need you. I don't need you. And that was the kind of guy that I was with, was somebody that required that I reminded him at every corner that I didn't need him. So I do think that was the energy that she was probably reacting to. And when I reevaluated my thoughts, I kind of felt like I don't disagree with the words. It was more so the energy that I was bringing to that conversation was indicative of somebody who didn't really have the most healed, healthy perception of love and romance. Someone who has a healed, healthy perception of love and romance is not afraid to say that they need somebody. Now listen closely, my love, listen closely, because I know you've said that you need that pair of shoes. I know you said you need a coffee when you wake up in the morning. Like there are things that are so much less important, like this stupid iced latte. Hi.
What's up, cool? You done?
No. Okay. This stupid iced latte right here, I needed it. I needed it to get through this video and this day because I have a long day today, okay? There are things that are so much less worthy of us saying we need them or we depend on them to get through our day than the person that we literally chose to be with. Why do we have so much pride around saying we need them? Now be careful. I don't want you to ever need a man or anybody for that matter for your survival. I don't want you to need a man or anyone for that matter for your happiness. I do think that happiness is something you can cultivate within yourself. But at the end of the day, we are social beings. We do need each other. We depend on each other. Growing up, we depended on our neighbors to keep a look over our house when we were overseas to make sure nobody breaks in or tries to steal anything. We depend on people at work to help us collaborate on some sort of deliverable that we need to turn around. So to say that you need your man for companionship, you need his listening ear, you need him for support, you need him to help you hang up something on the wall or zip your dress up or whatever it is, carry a package inside. Are we really that prideful that we can't literally say we need someone or we depend on a man? And this is, I guess, where we do get into the point about finances and financial dependence. And what I will touch on just lightly here is I don't think you should depend on anyone for your survival, period. But to depend on them as part of what makes you thrive and makes you live life to its fullest, I think is completely okay. We shouldn't be so prideful that we need to remind someone at every corner, the person that we chose, mind you, that we don't need them. Let's just cut that out and let's neutralize the word need in the same way that we neutralize it when we talk about how we need a massage or how we need to go work out. Okay? Okay. Which brings us to number 2. Just because you can does not mean that you should. When you get to a point where you're okay depending on him, you stop feeling the need to be so hyper independent that you're opening your own doors and you will also start embracing the idea that just because you can do something for yourself does not mean that you should. I learned this pretty young because I watched my mom do something wild that just completely changed my life. My mom is the textbook definition of an independent woman. Like, my mom was a boss. My mom was bringing in her own money. My mom could hold her own. But that doesn't mean that she needed to, because she chose a man and he was a great man. She chose a man that was so dependable in so many ways. And so, of course, she depended on him, even when she didn't need to. We had like different TV stations back in the day. So we had like the American cable network and then the Lebanese cable network, because sometimes we would toggle between like different news. And then we had like the Netflix and all that good stuff, right? I had like a couple different remotes to just like navigate between those things. One day we're just sitting in the living room and my dad is passing through the living room and my mom is like, Habibi, can you please help me with the TV? Can you please put it on? Da, 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 da. So my dad like walks in so excited. He pulls this remote, he does this, and then he switches it to that. And my mom was like, thank you so much. Oh my God, thank you so much. And my dad was like so happy, you know, like he felt like so good. So just keep that in mind. 2 weeks later, he goes on a trip to Lebanon and he's there. And so we're home with my mom. And I watch her like literally like a wizard, just switching through the stuff all by herself. So I looked at her like, did he teach you how to do it? And she just stared at me like this. And I'm like, the TV, like you didn't know how to do it. Did he teach you how to do it? She's like, you thought I didn't know how to do it? And I just stared at her and she's like, sometimes you just need to make them feel good. And I literally, my mind was like so blown, like so blown. When I say so blown, it was so blown. I did not know what to think because the young, prideful, like feminist in me was just like, I would never stroke a man's ego. And I used to say stuff like that. But here I see the woman who is like super independent, super powerful, super strong, literally stroking my dad's ego. And it made me really sit back and think, just because you know how to do something or just because you can do something, like I can theoretically throw the trash out. Yes, we all know that I theoretically have the skills to be able to do that. But why should I have to do that if I don't want to do that? I could theoretically carry a heavy package, but if I'm with him, why should I have to do that? It was hard for me to accept that and apply it in all the areas that I could apply it when we first got married. Like, don't get me wrong, I was never doing the trash. Like, those are the things that I knew, right? Like the trash, the heavy stuff, holding my bags, opening doors for me. Like, yeah, but there was also like emotional stuff where I felt like just because I can carry this heavy thing figuratively and literally does not mean that I have to. And it made me realize that trying to be so hyper independent is just an excuse to not be vulnerable. Like you're afraid of being vulnerable. You're afraid of letting someone help you carry the heavy things in life. So you just do it all on your own. You might also feel like you're a burden to other people. And you have to look at yourself in the mirror and be like, this person chose me just like I chose them. They chose me and everything that comes along with that. And if this is something that I want him to help me with, notice I didn't say need, because it's not always just about need. It's not just about what you need help with. You might want someone to also help you with something emotionally or even literally. And this is the person that you chose to be your life partner. If you don't feel confident or comfortable or safe asking them, what is the point of them being there? I had to learn this the hard way because I felt like I was dealing with a lot of emotional stuff on my own. And I realized, how is he supposed to know that I want him to help me if I don't open my mouth and ask for that help? How am I going to give us the best chance at having a healthy relationship if I'm not giving him an opportunity to show up for me in the ways that I know he can? And even in the ways that I don't know if he can. Like, how am I going to strengthen our relationship if I don't at least try to be vulnerable, actually vulnerable, and give him that opportunity to support me in this partnership? And when I say actually vulnerable, I think a lot of people really don't understand what true vulnerability is. Vulnerability, there's no objective truth to what actions or words are vulnerable and what ones aren't. If you want to know what actually makes you vulnerable, it's the thing that you're scared to say or ask for. That when your throat gets a little tight and your voice shakes when you're trying to tell someone something, that's vulnerability. I used to think I was the most vulnerable alive because I would talk about the things that other people thought were uncomfortable to talk about. I would open up about things I'd been through. I would open up, see, even this language. It's like, is it really opening up if it's out in the open? Like if I'm okay talking about it and it doesn't feel like I'm, opening up this clamshell to talk about it, then it's not really me opening up. Just because I can describe in detail my grief process from when my dad passed, or my toxic relationship, or things that I'm struggling with my body image. Just because I can talk about things that make other people uncomfortable does not mean that I'm being vulnerable if it doesn't make me uncomfortable. So you create true opportunity for vulnerability in your relationship when you do the thing that actually makes you uncomfortable, when you ask for the thing that feels impossible to ask for, when you request the type of emotional support that you don't think you should feel allowed to request from someone else. That is true vulnerability. So please understand that this hyper independence, a lot of times, is just powerlessness and lack of vulnerability in disguise. We all know that if you, because you're a human being, were thrown on a desert island, that you would figure it out, because we all have a survival mechanism within us that wants to live. So you will figure it out. But I don't know about you. I'm not trying to feel like I'm on freaking Survivor in my relationship. I don't want to survive in this house. I want to thrive, okay? If I was just trying to survive, I would be by myself, because I don't need to be taking care of someone else while I'm trying to survive. If I can't depend on him to help me thrive, why would I want him? And vice versa, if he can't depend on you to do more than just merely surviving, something he knew how to do and happily so without you, why are you here? What is the point of a man being in your life if you are not going to depend on him for a lot of things? And the standard for what those things are shouldn't just be about need. It can also be about what you want, because this is your relationship. So I plan to continue, and I have been, depending on him for a lot of things. And yes, even things that I can do on my own, because just because I can does not mean that I should. And my mom was right, by the way. They do like it. They do like to feel needed. They do like to feel useful. They do like to feel like they're doing things for you. So it's actually a win-win. You're getting something done for you, and they're feeling good about doing it. Which brings me to rule number 3. If you cannot let your guard down, let him go ASAP. I was the teenage girl, maybe even in my early 20s, who said things like, I could never stroke a man's ego. And here I am, twice her age, that version of me, happily stroking my man's ego. Yes, I am. And before you judge me, I want you to know that your obsession with being hyperly independent is also your ego. So if your ego is not in check, how are you going to judge him for having an ego? If your ego is not in check, how are you going to judge someone else for their ego? Every single one of us has an ego. Some of our egos are in check. Some of them are just running wild and just causing corruption. I'm hoping and trusting that the man that you choose or have already chosen is the former camp of people who have an ego that is manageable and is not really causing any harm. If that's not the case, if you feel unsafe making them feel good about themselves or letting your guard down so that they could feel that you need them, if that truly feels unsafe, then letting your guard down is not the problem. The problem is that you've selected someone who makes you feel like if you let your guard down, you're going to be unsafe. I know a lot of us have had traumatic experiences, specifically with men, whether romantically or men in our family, that have kind of caused us to feel this trauma around letting our guard down. I will never blame you for something like that. But it is your responsibility to ensure that the person you decide to be with, because again, it's a choice, the person that you've chosen is someone who makes you feel safe letting your guard down. This whole idea of you don't want to stroke his ego, or I don't want him to know that I need him because I don't need him. I want you to know I don't need you. I could leave, That's just a sign that you're unhealed and need to deal with that because you're treating this man like an op when really he's just trying to love you. Or B, he's really someone who you shouldn't be with because he's making you feel the need to exert that. That was the energy that I described in, rule number 1 when I talked about I want to be whole and find someone whole. It's because I was with someone who made me feel like I actually needed to remind him every 2 minutes who I was and who I could be without him. And so it's like, why was I wasting my time with someone who I didn't feel that I could be soft with? That was a me problem, really. That wasn't a him problem. It was my fault for electing to be with someone that I couldn't trust with my heart. So first things first here, your hyper independence could just be a red flag. I need you to check on that. Is your hyper independence a red flag? And is it trying to warn you not to trust this person? And if that's not the case and this person is worthy of your trust, what does it say about you that you can't give them that? What does it say about your relationship that you can't actually let your guard down and let him do the job that you basically hired him to do? Hired is so cringy, but to let him do the job that any good partner should be able to do for you, which is to emotionally support you. It's okay to have an ego. It's okay to stroke good people's egos here and there. It feels good for all of us. I'll leave you with a really cute story about my dad, who there is no other man that will ever really be able to make me feel as safe as my dad made me feel. And that's just the nature of father-daughter relationships. He made me feel so emotionally safe, physically safe, all of the above. So I felt so safe stroking his ego, similar to how my mom did. And a cute story that now that he has passed, I refer back to this and I smile because it was so wise and cute of me. But I was like very young. I think I was in my early 20s. And the same version of me who was talking about I'll never stroke a man's ego was actually indirectly doing that with my dad, where he went to Lebanon on one of his trips. And he was gone for a few weeks. And I sent him this email. If I can dig it up, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to find it, but if I can dig it up, I will show it here because it was so cute. And I said, when are you coming back? Like, I was just listing all these things wrong with the house, wrong with, basically it was my funny, cute, positively manipulative way of letting him know that he's very missed, letting him know that his presence is felt and his absence is felt even more, because all of the things that he did around the house or all of the things that he did for us don't go unnoticed. That was just my way of letting my dad know that I was grateful for him. And I decided to do it in a cute, clever way of just complaining about all the things that are wrong when he's not there. And he loved it. He literally showed it to all his friends in Lebanon. Like, he loved it. He was obsessed with it. And it really did teach me a valuable lesson that when a man makes you feel safe, I know in this example that man happened to be my dad, but when a man makes you feel safe, you have the capacity to pour into them and make them feel good. You have the capacity to make them feel needed, to make them feel like you depend on them and you appreciate them for all the ways that you depend on them. And it really taught me, I think subconsciously in that moment, if I can't be this vulnerable, soft version of myself with my future man, I don't want it. I don't want it. If I don't find someone or attract someone who makes me feel this safe, being this vulnerable about all the ways that I need and love him, I don't want it. Like, I'm good right here. I'm good where I'm at. I'm good being hyper independent, because if I can't feel safe being dependent, then I just prefer this independence. Why would I have someone else in my space if I can't depend on that? It literally, the math just did not math for me. And it really, really, really set the standard for the kind of love that I wanted to attract in my life. So you should know this by now, my love, but this video is not in defense of any of these men. I'm not making these points to defend their right to have their ego stroked or defend their right to, have you depend on them in a relationship. This is not about them. This is about getting you out of survival mode, getting you to a place where you can just calm down. Just calm down. It's okay. And if you don't feel like you can calm down, you're not in the right place. If you're watching this and you're still single and dating, I want you to find someone who makes you feel safe in your softness. Being hyper independent and tough and strong and all of that is cute when you're single, for sure. I will definitely teach my future daughter to be very independent when she's single, to weed out people who want to manipulate her. It's cute at the gym. It's cute if you live where I live and you're walking on the streets and people are shady and you're walking by yourself. All of that toughness, keep that. Keep that. I'm not telling you to get rid of that. Never. There's a time and place for that. But at least for me, I didn't want the time or place to be in my home with my man. Ew. Why would I want to be tough with my man? I want to come home and literally let my hair down, okay? And figuratively. I wanted to create a life with a person with whom I did not need to be tough. While I'm with him, I don't want to be tough. Just because I can does not mean I should have to. I don't want that. I have a feeling if you're watching this, you probably don't want that too. So this video, just take it as your sign to understand the art of letting your guard down. Yes, it absolutely starts with making sure that the person in front of you is not going to shoot at you when you let your guard down. Absolutely. That should go without saying. But the real gag for me was once I found that person, I didn't know how to let my guard down because I had gotten so used to operating in that survival mode. It was very conscious efforts from me in the beginning of our relationship to actually slowly but surely be vulnerable and let go of this hyper independence. And I wish I did this 3 years earlier. So that's why I'm making this video. I'm making this video because I want you to be prepared with the mindset shift that I didn't really know coming into my marriage. And now that I do know it and now that I have applied it, It has honestly made each of us so much happier, and then as a result, it has made the relationship so much stronger. I want that for you so that you can go from survival to thrival. As always, I'm not gonna tell you to like and subscribe. I know you hear that more than enough. But if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and send it to one of your hyper independent baddie friends who needs to hear it, okay? Let's leave people even more powerful than we found them. I love you so much, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.